Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. I think it's good evening if you are outside of North America. Welcome. I am Munir Mubashir. I'm going to be your host today. I lead marketing here at PKI Solutions. With me, I have Nick Sirikubult. And Nick is our senior program manager, so he leads everything dev product here at PKI Solutions. And finally, we have Michael Bruno. Michael is a developer who works on all things PKI. So when you see PKI Spotlight, you see the functionality there. Mike's hands have been on the keyboard, and they've made it work. So that's the three of us. And before I get into the details and the presentation, quick housekeeping here. There was a poll question around if you have seen the PKI Spotlight demo before. Feel free to address it or answer it, because they'll give us a feel for how deep to go in the product, because we don't want to bore you. That's one. Second, when you look at your, on the right hand, there is the chat, the Q&A, and there's a handout as well for the data sheet. But more importantly, for the purposes of the webinar today, feel free to ask us questions. We will be monitoring the Q&A panel. And just to warm it up, if everyone is comfortable, just to see if we're comfortable with the chat window, if you can type in where you are joining us from. So always great to get a global feel, North America feel, where you're joining us from, just to keep it interactive. And they will also tell us that there is the chat is working. So we'll keep an eye on it as we kind of go along, but feel free to post your questions in the handout. Awesome. Seattle, not that far. California, we're still on the West Coast. Great. Midwest, Cleveland, Dallas, Buffalo, New York. Excellent. We got Basel, Switzerland, FC Basel. Always see them in Champions League. Newport. We got England as well. India. Excellent. York, UK. Old York, not New York. Excellent. Thanks for joining. And we will get started here. I'm going to walk you through some of the slides, and then I promise we'll go straight to the demo. So those of you who might not know what PKI Solutions does, an organization that has been primarily focused on PKIs for the last 20 years or so, with the founder Mark Cooper and the core team. So for example, if I just, even with Michael, who joins us from a financial institution where he was a PKI engineer. So we're not exaggerating when we say 70 plus years of experience focused on PKI, 250 projects and 316 clients plus. Just to give you the background and the exposure, I've been with PKI Solutions for the last 4 months. And in the 4 months, I can safely say I have talked to 70 plus companies, and we talked about their PKI environment and what needs to be done. So PKI every day, that's what PKI Solutions is focused on. The second, straight into why do we care about PKIs and what's the outcome that we're trying to drive. And you'll see these 4 pillars mentioned on our website. It's something that keeps us grounded. Why PKI Solutions? Why PKI Spotlight? And these are the 4 pillars that we gauge our performance against. And one is we want to make sure that your infrastructure is operationally resilient. So any service or any use case that depends on your PKI can execute because your PKIs are up and available. And we also want to be there and make sure that any threat that impacts your identity and encryption systems, and that is based on PKIs, can be quickly identified through those seas of configurations and events. And the third is security posture management. And what is that, right? It's all about making sure the configurations of your PKIs are in line with your security posture. So how tight, how stringent, how loose. Sometimes they get defined by business requirements, and we want to make sure that your visibility into configurations are set up based on, which is the next point, best practices. If I have to say one thing that underpins PKI Solutions and PKI Spotlight is the deep domain expertise from engagements and taking that and applying it to the product itself. So that was my spiel. I wanted to open up with that and share and transfer over to Nick. And before I transfer over to Nick, I want to kind of share with you the promise of the presentation. The promise of the presentation is that you will see what PKI Spotlight does, but you will also see that you will be able to go up your maturity curve from operational resilience to threat detection to deep domain knowledge that we have now captured in PKI Spotlight and made it available to our users. So with that, Nick, it's yours. I'm going to transfer it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Munir. So I think we'll go with the challenge. Got the next slide. Yeah, so when it comes to PKIs, the focus is on what's above the surface here, and when in reality, what's below the surface is often neglected, overlooked. IT organizations don't necessarily have the expertise, not to mention the distributed, lockdown nature of PKIs and HSMs makes it super difficult to access much needed and important critical, configuration information. We know that certificate lifecycle management and monitoring solutions today don't address the operational challenges in managing and monitoring PKIs. So with that, Munir talked about the promise earlier. I'm going to show you PKI Spotlight now, and basically your takeaway is that PKI Spotlight provides you visibility into what's below the surface for your PKI and HSM environments. Why? It's critical that you are able to get this information in order to address issues before they become business impacting. Let me switch over. All right, so far so good. Cool. When I open the PKI Spotlight dashboard here, right away, you get a bird's eye view and a sense of what's happening across your PKI environment. You can see the status of your servers and even the specific roles you have running. You can focus your attention on events that are critical or events that are outside of business best practices that might impact the operational resilience of your PKIs. Just from this first view when you first launch it. But let's take a closer look into your PKIs, and I can do that by clicking agents. And what you're seeing here is the agent view of all of your PKI servers, regardless of network segmentation, forest, and subdomain, all in one view. And you're able to group your PKI servers accordingly. Here, I've grouped them by geography. You may want to group them by environments like production, test, or maybe even some type of business functionality. In this case, I have a group called acquisition companies. And we've seen, we've heard from the pain of inheriting PKIs that organizations don't, engineers, admins, resources don't know what is even the current state of that server. So to be able to have a tool like Spotlight help you get that visibility. You can see here basic information for each server and even visibility into the specific PKI roles running on each server. In this instance, you see that's a host. There's a certificate authority, web service, and the rest. Let me click on certificate authority for one of these and show you some important details that you also can see. So we're going deeper, and you can immediately see information like validity periods for your certificate authority, the number of certificates issued, all the way through to deeper configuration information, such as cryptography settings. These deeper PKI settings oftentimes, and we all know this, if not configured properly, impact your PKI security posture. And in a worst case scenario, may cause an impact to the business or an outage if not addressed. So I showed you details that you can get from one server, but you can easily cross-reference this against the rest of your servers by going into the roles. And again, you can go into the deeper aspects of details that you need. In this case, let's look at cryptographic settings across all of my servers, and you're able to do that easily to ensure that your system is in compliance with the appropriate settings that are approved for your environment. Let me go back to the agent view for a second, because you've seen how Spotlight provides visibility and deeper dive into the configuration settings for your PKIs. But you need to know if your CA is actually functioning. Is it truly able to digitally sign requests, right? In our latest release, we introduce an industry first feature that we call is alive. And I mentioned this earlier, current monitoring tools give a false sense, a false status that your CA and HSMs are operational, when in reality they're failing. These issues, we've heard from you, can go undetected for weeks, resulting in outages that are hard to troubleshoot and also a waste of time. Consequently, causing issues, security risks, loss of productivity, and worse, even revenue. So let me show you this in action. It looks like our Asia issuing CA is triggering an is alive alert. And let me drill down into that. Normal monitoring tools will tell us that the CA service is running. With is alive, we can see that although the certificate authority service is running, it's actually not functioning properly. And is alive tells us where to direct our attention to troubleshoot. I'm going to ask Michael Bruno, who you met at the top, who's our PKI developer extraordinaire, to join us and explain what is alive is telling us here and some other checks that are critical in ensuring your CA is functional. Hey, Michael.
Hey, everybody. So I was a PKI engineer over at Bank of America, and we had tens of CAs across various environments. And of course, our CA private keys were protected in HSMs. And HSMs, of course, add a large layer of complexity where the CA service looks fat, dumb, and happy running, but the CA is not actually able to access its private key material because the HSM is not in an operational state. So we ran into issues with CRIL signings being missed, certificates not being signed, and users and machines not having valid certificates. And we had no way of knowing we were in that state until we got complaints. So one of the things IsAlive does that no other service available does today is, in addition to checking the status of the CA service in Windows, it will also use the private signing key to sign an arbitrary piece of data and make sure that that signing is successful. Now here on this CA, we have an alert saying CA private key is unavailable. So that means that even though the CA service is running, the CA private key material is not actually available to the CA. So we alert you to that right away. The other problem with the CA is that the CA certificate is not actually chaining. So we validate, the IsAlive service can run up to once every minute, and we validate the CA certificate chain as well. So if you have a missing CRIL, an expired CRIL, a missing cert publication, we'll tell you right away. So those are the two alerts that this CA is administering. Now, the other checks that we do for in terms of CA IsAlive is we make sure that the iCert view interface is available, the iCert request interface is available, and we ensure that the CA certificate is valid, and that the CA service is running. So it's much more robust and exhaustive than anything else available today in terms of certification authority health.
Cool. Thanks, Michael.
Sure.
Stick around, hang on. I'm going to go over a couple of more features, and then we'll chime in if you have anything to add, or if I forget anything. So the next two I'm going to show are best practices and also how we alert. So getting into best practices, when you click on best practices, I'm doing this here, you immediately get data on where your PKIs are outside of best practice. Here you can see a best practice alert impacting a certificate authority and designated by risk severity. The severity designation allows you to prioritize the appropriate remediation plan. You can also see the timestamp when the best practice alert was raised, which is important as it tells us if it's part of the most recent check, and it also helps identify a configuration drift. We also see the system where it was raised. In this case, it's Asia issuing CA. When I click on it, I'm able to confirm the actual setting that's outside of best practice. And what you're seeing here is information about the best practice and the impact to your environment if not resolved. So if you're not familiar with the alert, you are able to get more information about what it is. And most importantly, you're provided remediation steps. I like what our customers are calling it, a recipe, if you will, for what you need to do to resolve the alert. Some have even said this is like having your own virtual PKI consultant. It's good also to note that as a PKI Spotlight customer, you get access to regular quarterly updates for the latest best practices, rules, and remediation steps, so you can stay on top of the latest risks to your PKI environments and prioritize the appropriate remediation before those issues become, business impacting. And now, as much as we all like dashboards, we know you want this PKI information in other tools. You want to be alerted. I can go into events in order to determine specific details about a PKI server down to a specific role and or source. I can view the event across all of my PKI servers without digging into the event viewer and also without jumping on other server boxes. I can see changes that happen for any certificate authority, in this case, all in one place. Now, obviously, if we're getting these notifications here in the dashboard, then I can also get alerted. And that's the real value of PKI Spotlight. And let me go drill down and get to our event subscriptions. Now, I can set up an email subscription, which today is our alerting mechanism to send out an alert anytime that something is affecting my operations as needed. I can set up, it's easy to do, I can set up a notification for CA failures. It's easy to do across all my boxes. And I can direct these alerts to the appropriate teams. Maybe perhaps it might be to an administrative team. And at the same time, I can also include an email sent to incident management. So if people are using ServiceNow, that might be an option in order to start, issue tracking and escalation. But you can see here the level of depth and level of data that you can get to in order to create an alert. And that alert can be sent to the appropriate team that initiates the specific processes that are based out of your organization, from your organization. But again, you have the ability to create the alert that can go directly to the right authoritative systems, processes, and teams. And in some use cases, this might be, again, a security operations center, a network operations center, or the appropriate teams within your organization. So let me just close this out here, and let me just do a quick a recap of what you've seen today. I've showed you how PKI Spotlight provides PKI data visibility from your PKI systems and enabling you to send that information to the appropriate teams. You saw how to deep dive into configuration details across your PKIs. You also saw how our industry first is a live feature for certificate authorities validates signing functionality for your CAs, giving you confidence that your CA not only looks alive and is alive. You saw our virtual PKI consultant, aka best practices feature, that's always on and not only alerting you, but also providing you steps on how to get back on track. And I don't know, Munir, if you have a slide, but if you want additional details and information, check out, we'd love to get feedback from you guys. Please check out our website, pkispotlight.com. You can connect with any of us and all of us via support@pkisolutions.com.
So before we kind of let's just go through some questions, and I also Nick, thank you for the quick excellent overview. I know you could spend hours going into the details. In the interest of time, we just wanted to focus on the top level. There are questions, and I want to go through some of the questions, and then I also want to just kind of I have some questions for both you and Mike as well. So we'll go to the questions. One of the questions was about, and I'm going to start with that one, is can you show the relationship? And this is from Paul here, which says, will it tell you what type of CA and chains that are linked to in a graphical format. So is there a way to show the linking and chaining in a graphical format? That was a question, and then, yeah.
Definitely. So the topology viewer is exactly purposed for that. That'll show how your PKI CA hierarchy looks. In terms of the type of CA, I'm assuming you meant enterprise or standalone. That you can see in the CA role details for each of your agents.
Excellent. I hope that answers that question, Paul. The second one was around, I think it came when you were showing is alive, and it was around tuning out alerts so they don't get from a root certificate. So the question was, so can you tune out some of these alerts so you don't get this info, which was when we were talking about is alive, from a root CA, which should be offline and should have the HSM not connected. Valid CA private key is unavailable.
So
I hope I did justice to the question. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep talking over you. The way our product works, we have you lay an agent down on the online components of your PKI, your CAs, your web enrollment, and as the offline components, we gather information about those things from different sources, such as the CRL distribution point, the AIA, the access information point, and also Active Directory. So we can display information about those offline components based on those pieces of information, but we don't recommend that you put our agent on those components because they have no way to communicate back to the controller.
That's right.
Excellent. And one more question. I know this is a popular one, Nick, something that is close to your heart. Can this output be sent to a SIEM tool for consolidation via mailbox? That's your number one. Can this output be sent to a SIEM tool for consolidation via mailbox?
I would say today the alert mechanism is email. Munir's leading me on because I get excited talking about our SIM roadmap. I would ask back what SIM products you all are using as your authoritative system. We've heard from customers that Splunk is one of them, and just in all transparency, we're effectively ready to go on that. But if there is feedback from you all that there's another solution, I'd love to hear that. But yes, the design and roadmap for this is to again take this organized PKI data and send it to SIM products like Splunk. And by the way, ServiceNow actually has a couple of really good modules too that we're working on integrating with.
Excellent. Then
I hope that answered the question.
I think you did. And there was another question that came on, and I'm going to start with. It came early on. Is how is this data collected? Is this based on AD query? And maybe Mike, that's for you.
Yeah, that's a good
this
question.
Data gets collected. Yeah,
we get that a lot.
Yeah, no, there's no dependency on AD for us to collect information. The only thing we need is TLS. Needs to be a TLS port open between the controller and the agents, and that's it. And other than reading obviously the CRLs and the root certificates from AD, if you're publishing that stuff to LDAP, there's no reliance on AD.
Excellent. Which brings me to the first question that got asked: the gray in the circle. What's the gray, guys? What's the gray in the circle? The red, the green, and the gray in the circular visualizations for the roles that you see.
I believe that means that there's agents connected to this controller that were detected to have those ADCS roles, but that role is not detected on that server anymore.
Yep, that's correct.
Excellent. Those are the questions that we had. I think if there was, okay, good. I saw some more. Oh, very nice. Okay. Now, this came from Alex here. Can this product allow me to enter my PKI security policy and compare my desired state to the actual implementation state?
Oh my gosh, I love Alex.
Also,
Mike.
can this tell me? I'll start with that. There are two questions to it, part one, part two. But let's start with the first one. Desired state, yeah.
Alex, not today. We know that. We know we've heard from customers. We know from our projects and in levels of engagement that that's a must-have when it comes to taking a snapshot of a setting that you guys have, and to be able to compare that against and across your environment. There's a couple of other scenarios that are related to that today. No, so sorry to give you the long salesy answer, no, but it definitely is. Again, you look at Mike will tell you this. Absolutely, that is something we're going to get to.
And I think it also aligns with one of our principles, right? Core pillars.
Yeah.
Security posture management, which is desired state management, and now you're kind of wrapping it in. There was I know in the interest of time, I'm just going to go through. Okay. And also, I think it's a part two of this. Can this tell me if I should update my security policy to adjust to enterprise changes and best practices? And I think it aligns with best practices and should as well. I don't know if that's something we can, it's part of the, I know they're part of the roadmap, but what we can do, take it, maybe align more with best practices and then applying it to security policy.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like there's best practices, and then there's also it sounds like there are twofold. One that we or apply to enterprise settings, and then there are like the what's out in the wild type vulnerabilities and fixes and things like that. And then there's also some hardening guides based on maybe the functionality, and then maybe perhaps even the industry, and maybe compliance specific things. So I would say maybe something for another webinar, maybe deep diving into a little bit of that roadmap. We'd be happy to share that with you guys and discuss what's priority.
I know there's some, roadmap questions that came in as well around, I think this comes up a lot, Nick and Michael, about, HSM support. What do we support today? And I know with the is alive, we just basically checked connectivity with HSM, and that's regardless of the vendor. But for the direct HSM support, we today do Encipher. I know we're looking to do other platforms as well. So I don't know if something, Nick and Mike, you want to talk about HSMs and other vendors like Tails.
And yeah, I'll go for it. Mike, like Encipher out of the gate. I'll let you talk about that a little bit. And then we definitely have a roadmap of HSM vendors and products that we have a priority list for.
Yeah, today we support Encipher, and we monitor the NFAS service and your security world and your HSM, your security world and your modules. Talus SafeNet is a tough nut to crack, but like Nick said, that's on the roadmap.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some, again, I don't want to keep us for too long. I know we had, allocated some buffer there. There's some, roadmap questions that came in, and one this notifying about problems proactively, fix them with an easy button. I will take this because because of the change in configuration implication and my history and background in change and ITIL. Today, as you look at the best practices, we give you a way, like a playbook or a mini run book or whatever, like a recipe to go through what can be done. And that's one of the areas we're looking to explore, like how do you programmatically fix it while not doing two things, while making sure that there's an audit trail, who, what, when, and on whom, because that is really critical for a PKI infrastructure. And then the second piece is, also making sure that there is more alignment with best practices. Yes, programmatically fix things, remediation is part of it, but having done change in configuration and remediation, started my career in it, you really need to pay attention to what can be automated and what cannot be. So those are things that we will keep an eye on. But the first thing is read only, which is desired state management, drift from desired state, best practices, what can be done, so that the knowledge gap is reduced and you have all that information at your fingertips.
Yeah, PKI servers are very sensitive, and the observe and report model that we're going with today allows you to use our product with a relatively low privilege identity. So yeah, that's an important thing to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. I know.
I'm surprised there's no question about. Maybe I'm putting myself out there, Mike. Right? We normally get questions about other CAs and those. I'm surprised.
There is.
There's always a couple.
There is. Yeah, EJBCA.
EJBCA. Yep.
Yeah.
And we
what
know
about
that,
ABCS?
Google has Google has theirs. HashiCorp has their Vault. There's a number of different types of CAs out there that we plan on incorporating in here. Out of the gate, we just focus primarily on the biggest pain point, which was ADCS for a lot of our customers. They didn't have that visibility, but we're hearing from folks that have a lot of experience that have EJBCA in their environment. So we that is something that we are actively looking at, possibly for either end of this year or early next year.
Excellent. I think that pretty much covers the questions that we had. And then Alex will be more than happy to kind of reach out, and get into more details. So we covered the questions we have here. The second thing is, if anyone wants a more in-depth overview of PKI Spotlight and how that applies to your organization, feel free to reach us at PKI Spotlight.com, and the handout has the data sheet. It's a summary. Feel free to download it so you get a feel for what is in the product today. And when you go to PKI Spotlight.com, you can schedule a demo with us as well. We're always available. Our calendars are up to date, and we make ourselves available to share and go in depth into the product as well. So that pretty much wraps up our presentation for today. I hope everyone got a good feel for what PKI Spotlight does and how it can address the growing importance of PKI infrastructure within organizations. So thank you again, and hope to see you on another webinar.